This statement is absolutely 100% true. I do want to clarify some of the comments I made in that video. When I say the Civil War started in Kansas, I am referring to a conflict between one state and another state, or one group of people and another group of people, over whether or not slavery should exist in a territory. Slavery is, always was, and always will be the main cause of the Civil War. There are other minor things that lead to it happening, but slavery is the number one cause of the Civil War. There's just no other way to say that. So if you don't want to believe me, go ahead and Google the Declaration of Causes for the Secessionist States. 9 of the states that are joining the Confederacy go ahead and write out their own Declaration of Independence style reasons for why they're succeeding, and in all of them they list slavery as like the main reason that they're succeeding. Also, feel free to look up the Cornerstone speech by Alexander Stephens, who was the vice president of the Confederacy, who literally says in his speech, slavery is by which the cornerstone of which we build our new republic on. So yes, slavery was the reason for the Civil War. The roots of the Civil War don't just come to a head because of what happens in 1855 in Kansas and later on in Bleeding, Kansas. You can argue that it goes back even deeper than the nullification crisis that takes place during Andy Jackson's presidency. We can go back to the Constitutional Convention when we're talking about the compromises that come out of that. You have your 3/5 compromise, which was done towards population, which was a way to get the southern states on board with the Constitution by stating that while slaves could not vote and were not considered humans by many in the South, they were considered property to be owned, they would still be counted as 3/5 of a whole person to give the South a larger majority in Congress in order to let them keep slavery being perpetuated. You also have the clause in the Constitution that states that for 20 years after the passage of the Constitution, no law could be made about slavery. What a lot of people in the North were hoping was that slavery would on its own be extinguished. At that point in time, slavery was starting to decline. Do I believe that they thought it would just go away and they wouldn't have to deal with it? No, they punted that can down the road because they didn't want to deal with it. You're going to have the different compromises that take place. Missouri Compromise, worst compromise ever made, because the compromise was Missouri gets to be a state, and not only does Missouri gets to be a state, it gets to be a state that has slaves, and we let that happen. You have the Compromise of 1850, which helps strengthen the fugitive slave law, which pretty much makes it illegal to try to help any slave escape. And if you do, you're violating federal law, no matter if you agree with slavery or not. And it says it's the duty of every person in the United States to help capture fugitive slaves. Before that passage, before California is added as a state, states threatened to secede. So again, we can trace that line of slavery being a huge major issue and flashpoint of politics in the United States all the way back to the founding of the Constitution. But the Civil War is a culmination of issues of basically the United States having to deal with that original sin of slavery. So while Kansas wasn't the only one, it is my personal belief, and I can defend this, that what is going to cause a Civil War? What are the effects of the Civil War? When do we start seeing fighting over the cause of the Civil War, fighting over slavery? Happens in Kansas.